anymore. Welcome to my talk. I'll be talking about Dungeons & Dragons, which we all love, and why or how you can actually get to use it in your adult job and use that as an excuse. So we will thank you later. But first, a little bit about me. The worst thing about black pets is that, first of all, you can't really take a photo of them, and if you manage to do so, nobody can see how damn cute they are. But I live in Copenhagen along with my wife and those two little rascals. I've been in security since 2004. During that time, I managed to get good at absolutely nothing, but also moderately knowledgeable about a lot of things. So that's my forte, I guess. I used to do a lot of using security architecture before I became a freelancer. And I've always been involved with the community. I've been involved with my local West chapter, and in 2019 I co-founded B-Sides Copenhagen. I also quickly realized that running a B-Sides and running it again is not something I'm good at, so I stepped down last year. But it's really great to go at a B-Sides without being the one running around, having to organize everything. But so as I said, I went freelancer because I want to be able to do fun stuff, and also I figured nothing could possibly go wrong with that. Good, but it's life as an independent isn't that always hard, but usually good. So and also you can get your company to pay all your business trips without having to convince them, which is cool. And there is no reason for you to take any photos of sites because my last slide will be a QR code, and I promise that QR code is legit and it points to my slides. And about B-Sides Copenhagen, it's November 8th, 2025, and CFP closed in 1 week. Just saying. Last year we had 650 SNGs, 3 tracks. So it's kind of like Dublin, I guess. All right, let's get back to the real business. First, I want to talk a little bit about which problem I'm trying to solve by doing this by using Dungeons & Dragons instead of your ordinary tabletop. I'll also talk a little bit about theory, how your brain works, and also why role-playing games work, why in particular role-playing games work. And then I'll talk a little bit about Hackback, which is our open source-ish framework on doing this. I'll come back to that. So first of all, I'm not talking about gamification. That is something completely different. Game-based learning is where the game is what is the actual learning experience. Gamification is taking something that has nothing to do with learning, doesn't have to, and then turning it into a game, basically. Like, for instance, which department is best at, which department answers the really, really boring computer-based training first, get cake. That's gamification. So, yeah, just to get that out of the way. So, what's the problem with training? Well, first of all, usually it's class-based or computer-based, which is even worse. And before I talk too much about instant response, I want to say that I'm talking about this out of my own experience and what I heard. You may have excellent people doing excellent instant response training, which is engaging and fun, and that's perfect. But I don't see much of that around. So, hence my talk. So, the problem with the two first, class-based and computer-based training, is that they are very intellectual and very theoretical. It's a very theoretical way of training, and that's not how instant response works. You need to have this, you need to have this as muscle memory. It needs to be something that you do. And obviously, the way training works in instant response is obviously using a tabletop exercise of some sort to try and get that muscle memory working, but if it's not engaging, if people don't really immerse into it, then, what's the point, right? So, but, as I said, it's all about building muscle memory on incidents. And the way it usually works is that people tend to think too much about who else is in the room. They tend to think too much about their own egos, about finding holes in your scenario, claiming that won't work, all that stuff. And the most important thing, though, is that when usually doing those kind of boring tabletops is that people really don't engage, and fun is almost taboo. And in my mind, that's totally wrong. Fun is actually what makes you want to engage and want to do this thing. And actually, of course, there is another way. And that's what I'll be talking about. To me, it has always made sense to combine fun and learning. And it turns out that using that approach, just saying do it because it's fun, may not be totally convincing, so I had to find some theory that backs this up. So here we go. I'll be quoting some studies. Most studies in the sample report analog game-based learning as an effective pedagogical tool with an impact on the learning cognitive and psychological levels. That's from the Media Foundation in Psychology, playing the school table, which is a systematic review of game-based, of board, tabletop, and other analog game-based learning experience. So in general, game-based learning is a good approach. That's what science tells us. So, but fun, and fun is serious business. And that's another thing that it may be hard for some companies and some management to understand that fun is actually good. But fun is what makes things like this worthwhile. And you can also have fun and learn at the same time. Fun can be serious. So there's a bit of a cultural shift there, I guess. All right, there was something I should have fixed. All right. Another quote that I made as part of the talk, mostly because it's fun. I think we're all impressed by how stupid humans are. It reaches almost epic proportions. We're stupid in dozens of ways, but human minds are plug-and-play devices. They're not meant to be used alone. They're meant to be used in networks. Games allow us to do that. They allow us to use collective intelligence, and collectively we're not so stupid. Because basically, there's an article somewhere about a panel debate at Stanford. The whole point of this is that kids intuitively learn by playing and by interacting and using each other's brain and networking their brains. And that works perfectly well, but then they start in school and it's all over, right? Then we don't do that anymore. So the whole point is that's maybe we should go back and actually think what's good. What is a good way for people to learn? So there are many ways to do this learning with others. I've chosen to do it with as a team-based learning, as role-playing games, because of after real-life experience trying it, and also because we all like games and believe that it has serious potential. So and role-playing game, another quote: Dungeons and Dragons and its cousins are played in an inviting, encouraging, passionate, and intellectually engaged environment. Play opens the doors to truly amazing possibilities for learning. So that's a quote of an article quoting David Simpkins, the professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology, an expert in gaming and learning. So also, it turns out that serious people are actually doing research on Dungeons and Dragons specifically, which I find amazing, right? So not only is gaming good, Dungeons and Dragons is all good, right? So here we are. And also, of course, we're geeks. I'm geeky, so that's again an excuse to do Dungeons and Dragons as part of your grown up, my grown up, and as I said, you probably will too. So the thing with the thing with role playing is that it's fun. People laugh a lot, and the reason why they do that is because I'll talk about that later. But when people laugh and they get immersed into the game, they forget their egos. They forget how to protect, or they forget to protect their turf. They forget to fight the scenario. They're basically just in the present, right? And then, of course, they're more honest. And then, obviously, in a role-playing game, people are actually playing roles. That also means that you can change the roles around. So, in an instant response scenario, or in general, if you're very technical, you tend to think the only thing that really matters in an incident or an incident handling is a technical part of it. But if you take a person like that and put them into a role as head communications, for instance, where they have to manage a lot of stakeholders, all of a sudden they realize, well, maybe there's other things that are important. And that's the whole empathy, right? That improves the teamwork in general, because if you understand and you respect what everyone else is doing, then your team just works better. And of course, when we do with Dungeons and Dragons, it's more lifelike in the sense that there is a limit to how many actions a person can take. Or to put it in another way, one person can't do everything, like they maybe can in a normal tabletop exercise, because there's a fixed number of actions for each character, and when those actions are gone, somebody else has to do something. So right, in that way, the load will be more even. Also, of course, you don't want your whole incident response to be depending on just one person, but that's another story. But Hackback is a general framework for simulating any situation, open, and also we are trying to open source it, meaning that we have all the code in a GitHub that's not public because we haven't gotten around to write all the documentation that we want to, but it's possible to use. And I'll give you the link to our Discord where you can join and ask access anymore at some point after this. Sorry. So yeah, this is a website and the fancy logo. It's also on LinkedIn, and also upon this QR code is legit. So let's talk about what it actually is. And also, as I said, there's a QR code in the end. Using Dungeons and Dragons for security training is not just about incident response, because if you know, if you have been playing Dungeons and Dragons, is that you can basically simulate any kind of situation, and the same thing in security. So what you use it for is what I call de-abstractify, meaning that you play around a subject that is a little bit abstract. For instance, like IAM, which is a little bit abstract, boring. But what if you play a scenario where you're attacked and you have IAM, or you're not, or you don't have IAM, and then you actually get screwed over? Or you can talk about zero trust, because zero trust, who knows what zero trust is anyway, right? Well, why don't you play a scenario where you're doing those things without calling it zero trust, and then actually get a feeling of what it is without people focusing on the buzzword of it, for instance. And also, it can be used to teach non-technical personnel about security. You can put them in a situation where they're either hackers or they're defending, and without them actually knowing what to do, but making it at a higher level of abstraction, because the point is that they need to get a feeling of what an incident is, what security is, all that stuff, which in turn makes them better at the job. That could be sales and marketing, for instance. and also in a scenario where you are 5 people that are trying to physically penetrate a building. You each have two physical tools you can bring, and you're all good at different things. Meaning, it's a game about physical penetration of a building, but also a game about teamwork, right? Because you can't do it if you don't work together as a team. So it can also be marketing event if you have some sort of security product, and you want to explain to users or potential users or buyers that how your tool works. Well, write a scenario, put it in a game, then they'll get a better feeling then. And also it's much easier than doing a of course. In team event, you can also play this in teams where each team are discussing which character should do what next. I've done this with 25, 30 people, which works fine. And yeah, simulating real event. You can also use a scenario based around something that you have actually done to convey how you work, how your company works, and why it matters what you do. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things you can do, and as I see it, it's just a matter of getting the right idea, and then of course follow through with that. So Hackback is mostly we're mostly playing it in the instant response editions because instant response is something we all have to do. So it's quite easy or rather, it's easier to explain why you do something that you're already doing in a different way, rather than explaining why you should do something that you don't do at all in the first place. So instant response. The way it works is that the incident master runs the game like a storyteller. He's a dungeon master, and the thing with being an incident master is that it takes a lot of skills. You need to know about security. You need to know exactly what's going on a technical level in the game, so that you can react to what your players want to do and build a story around it that makes sense. Also, you need some experience as a dungeon master. You need to be able to think on feet, because there's a lot of things you can do. Obviously, when you design the scenario, you have an idea of in which direction the game will go, but it's really up to the player. So who knows? Right? So you really need to be able to take that into action or integrate it. Yeah. When we usually played a team with broad skills, like we have a CMO, a CFO, security manager, supporter, market system architect, or whatever. It depends a lot on the scenario and what makes sense. And then each player has a 20-sided dice, a D20. And the reason for that is that we want to simulate real life. Sometimes in an incident, you do all the right things, but it just doesn't work. So you need to be able to work with that also in real life. And yeah, scenarios are open-ended. They can go in any direction, which is also how it works in real life. Because when you start a scenario, you don't really know what's going on. You need to investigate. You need to see where the story takes you, so to speak. And also the way it works with characters is that they all have things that are good and bad, and there are modifiers, or they're called modifiers in the game. We tend to use to make characters a little bit stereotypical, in that, for instance, we have Microsoft system architect who really love Microsoft, who really hate Linux, and also they have -2 likability because they're really, really annoying. And I guess at some point we have all maybe met a person like that. Or a CFO who really only thinks about money. And in the beginning of the game, we introduce ourselves as that character, and that is where the magic happens. That is where people are laughing, losing out, and having fun. And that's where sort of the whole foundation for the rest of the game is set up there. So an example scenario it starts on a Friday afternoon because that's where incident happens. The company has their entire IT infrastructure in Azure, and they get an alert from Microsoft, or whatever they call it these days. And basically they're saying that an administrator from marketing logged in, and the weird thing about that is the duplication. So what do you do? That's basically, you can do a lot of things in a situation like that, and it's really up to you what you want to do. You can look at the logs. You can also maybe get your first level support who has plus 2 likability. Everybody liked them to call out on a vacation, and then there's a bigger chance of them picking up their phone. You can ask them, was it you or wasn't you? Or you can look at the logs. They logged from China. Oh, that wasn't good. So you can do a lot of things. That's the point. But you can also do a lot of other things with Hackback. For instance, I had ideas that you could put Hackback on top of a purple team assignment, where you can do where we can do the actual technical hacks or whatever, and then build a crisis management around that and train that. Or you can take a you can do risk assessment in Star Wars scenario where you set in the Death Star. One player can beat Darth Vader, and I assure you, all of a sudden, all the geeks want to learn about risk assessment. And I said there's a lot of other ways you can do it. As I said, it's all soon open source. It's all in Corel Markdown. Sharing is sharing, and we have a Discord where you can join and ask for access. And it's not exactly where we want it to be, but it all takes a lot of writing, and writing takes time, and not the most interesting thing to do. So that's where we are. And also the good selling point of this is that if you're doing this too, like anyone else or Dora, then you have to do it in sprint training. So why not do it in a way so that your colleagues don't hate you? Right? It's all about having fun and learn. And also one last thing, of course, is that if you want to play with me on this, then feel free to talk to me. I'll be happy to help you get it done. If you have the decision power, that's cool. If you don't, I'm pretty sure we can find other ways to convince your boss. And thanks. I don't know if you have time for questions or anything. Do we have time for questions? All right. People. Oh, yes. So. Okay. Oh, the thing. It's best played around 5 to 7 people, something like that, because else it takes too long. I would say there's a cap of around maybe 3 hours, because people can't, concentrate for longer than that. So, and that's basically why I came up with the whole idea of playing as teams, because then you can scale up. That depends on what you want to do with it. Sorry. Yes. If it can be used for threat modeling, yes, of course. I mean, as I said, it's all a matter of coming up with the right scenario. So you could, depending on how realistic you want to do it, you can. It depends if you want to teach the concept of threat modeling, or you want to actually threat modeling of an actual thing. Because those two different things. But the way I see it can be used for both, really. So. Yeah. So and I would say that's it. Oh, sorry. The last thing, of course, is that I have cool stickers. They're medley and colors, and also I have some stickers for my B-sides.